hopping on to our YouTube Live today. Thank you to those of you that joined our Zoom session today. I don't know about you, but I had a ton of fun. I'm still laughing to myself about those silly Kahoot names that it gave us. I think that I might have to hold on to that mighty piranha one. So I'm going to continue reading our Skeleton Creek. Remember that he was talking about how the town with the dredge has kind of turned people into ghosts, and they just kind of walk around. So we're going to continue with that and see what happens with Henry. So here we go. Monday, September 20th, 4:10 p.m. Parents can't complain about me sitting in my room all day. Henry came back and talked me into going down to the creek with my fly rod. I haven't been up to fishing since before the accident, and I probably had no business standing anywhere near the fast-moving water with a shattered leg, barely out of the full leg cast. Henry did most of the casting, catching, hooting, and hollering. I mostly sat in the shade and watched him work his way up and down the best stretches of Skeleton Creek, hooking fish after fish. I have to give him credit. He'd learned the water and he knew when to or what to throw. I've been fishing nothing but Skeleton Creek all summer for years, and I've never caught as many big fish as I saw Henry catch today. The guy is a machine. I think that we've already read this, but I'm doing the actual book instead of the Kindle app today because my loan ended. So bear with me. I'm just going to finish this part and then we'll move on. Being out near the water today made me value it more than ever. The creek is lined with these great big cottonwood trees that fill the air with what looks like snow every time the wind blows. And there are groves of aspen, thin trees with white bark and gold leaves, huddled close along the banks of some of the best water. Those aspen groves will take your breath away. And there's one other thing, a part of this place that makes it unlike any other. All those big piles of rock and earth dredge dug up formed an endless line of rolling hills along the banks of the creek. Over the years, the surface filled with grass and trees and flowering plants. The creek is like a secret paradise no one has discovered way up here, tucked away in the woods next to the ramshackle town the size of a postage stamp. There are birds everywhere, little creatures scampering around and chirping over the hills, and larger animals rustling in hidden places nearby. All these sights and sounds today made me realize how much I miss visiting the creek. It gave me a view of things I hadn't thought of before. I'd only ever hated the dredge like everyone else. But right here, right under my nose, is this spectacular thing the dredge left behind. It makes me wonder if this is a principle that can be counted on. Good things can be created from bad. I can't stop thinking about how this old town of mine just needs a lucky break to start heading in the right direction again. Monday, September 20th, 7:25 p.m. Sometimes after one of Henry's barbecues or a morning at the cafe eating chicken fried steak and eggs. Sometimes after one of Henry's barbecues or a morning at the cafe eating chicken fried steak and eggs, my mom decides the McRaes need to eat a healthy dinner. This is a terrible idea and always puts my dad in a bad mood. Just eat. It's not going to kill any of you. These are my mom's words as my dad, Henry, and I sat staring at the food she placed before us. What is it? Henry was brave enough to ask. He was about half serious and half honestly curious as he stared at the three bowls clustered together in the middle of the table. That right there is rice, I said, pointing to the round bowl in the middle. It's brown rice, my mom corrected, staring at Henry. Are you going to tell me you've never seen rice before? Henry had seen rice. It was the main dish he was worried about. What about that stuff? He asked. He pointed to a bowl filled with something that looked like green logs floating in a purple lake. Ooh, that sounds horrible. You really want to know? I asked my mom. Because you're eating it whether I tell you or not. Henry pondered his options, swallowed hard, and nodded. Tell me. My mom scooped up a big spoonful of brown rice and slapped it onto Henry's plate. Then she ladled a glob of purple lake water and green sticks over the top. Low-fat yogurt with whole beets, pulverized in a blender and poured over a can of green beans. Eat up. Oh, that sounds awful, guys. Would you eat that? Henry looked like he was about to barf. The last item was a flat pan of green Jell-O with sad little mandarin oranges trapped all through the middle. My dad put about half of the pan of Jell-O on his plate, so there was no room for anything else. And then he sat there, slurping miserably with a spoon. Stop that, my mom said. She can't stand it when people slurp their Jell-O. The best part was when Mom took a bite of this crazy concoction and chewed, but couldn't swallow without washing it down with a Diet Coke. She tried really hard to keep a straight face, but once Henry took a bite himself, just to be a good sport, his eyes started bulging and my mom came completely unglued. We all had a pretty good laugh, and then she let Henry and my dad go to the kitchen and make pancakes for dinner. We sat there, me and my mom, eating Jell-O without slurping. "You doing okay?" she asked. "Yeah, it was nice going to the creek today. I haven't done that for a while." "I'm glad you went outside. The fresh air is good for you." I nodded and took another bite of green Jell-O. "I checked your computer last night," she said. "It looked clean. A little too clean, if you get my drift." Uh-oh. Maybe my mom knows more about computers than I thought. Was I erasing everything? Was I making it too perfect? I pretty much expected what came next. "Have you been talking to Sarah?" The big question I was asked in one form or another every day. It should have gotten easier to lie, but the guilt was starting to pile up, so it only got harder. "I'm not talking to anyone. I just like my computer clean. It runs faster that way." Mom looked at me sideways. "Now we're talking," Henry yelled. He was balancing some king-sized pancakes on a spatula in one hand and carrying a handful of paper plates in the other. My mom kept looking at me, but Henry had saved me from any more cross-examination at the dinner table. She left me alone after that, but I had the feeling she didn't trust me. I couldn't blame her, and was worried it would mean she would be watching even closer than before. With school starting in only a week, her radar was dialed in and searching for clues. In another half hour, it'll be dark. I can't get out of here. If I go for a walk alone, they'll assume I'm trying to see Sarah. I haven't heard from her all day. I bet she's sent me something. The Blue Rock in the morning, that's the soonest I can try to contact her. Tuesday, September 21st, 8:56 a.m. As soon as my parents left for work, I crept out the screen door and down the front porch. Henry snored in the guest room, so getting by him wasn't a problem. I walked through town, down the main artery of Main Street, passing 20 side streets that shoot off like veins. It still amazes me that this is our whole town. My house, more or less, on one end, and Sarah's on the other end, down a street that doesn't look a whole lot different from mine. I remember when we were 7 or 8 years old and we spent an entire day trying to figure out the exact halfway point between our houses. We did it because neither of us liked to walk any farther than we had to, and we thought it was only fair to split the distance as precisely as possible. After hours of pacing and figuring and drawing a map of the town, we came to the conclusion that the old station house from the train conductor was exactly halfway between our houses. We would sometimes call each other on the phone and race there. She won every single time. After a while, I figured out that she tricked me by putting the middle on her side of Main Street, not mine, thereby making it possible for her to use a shortcut we hadn't used when calculating the distance. I think girls are much craftier than boys when they're little. In any case, by the time I figured out the whole distance problem, it was too late. We decided we needed a marker at our spot. First, we found the rock. It took both of us to move it under the station house and center it just right. "Let's paint it," said Sarah. "Why?" I said. "Because I want to paint it. Don't you want to paint it?" "Sure, let's paint the rock. Why not?" This very short conversation says a lot about my relationship with Sarah. She wants to do something. I don't necessarily care one way or the other, and so we do it. 8 years later, I've come to discover this is no way to lead a life. It can get you in a lot of trouble. It might even get you killed. It was more out of opportunity than anything else that the rock became blue. It is the color of Sarah's house because she stole an old can of paint from her garage. We didn't have a brush, so she just poured the paint over the top like hot fudge on ice cream. And you know what's funny about that? The paint can is still under there too. We didn't know what else to do with it. What if we tossed it in a ditch and someone found it? It was Sarah's house blue, and someone would tell. The Blue Rock became the place we met, where we put the secret notes and treasures we'd found and candy we wanted to share. We were secretive like everyone else in town, even back then. We didn't want anyone hearing us talk about the Blue Rock. It was ours, and it wasn't easy to find. The train still comes through town in early morning, but it never stops here anymore. It used to a long time ago when the dredge was pounding away 24/7, digging up something worth stopping for. But the old station house was already abandoned when we were kids, so we set about exploring it. It wasn't too intimidating, only about the size of a backyard storage shed on the edge of the tracks. It was locked up tight, but the cool thing was You could climb underneath it. The station house was up off the ground, and for some reason, I think so, it was at the same height as the train conductor when he came by. And the cheapest way to accomplish the extra height was to put this little shack on a bunch of cinder blocks. Weeds had grown up all around the edges, sort of like a curtain you could just pull back. It was cold gravel underneath, and when we crawled inside, it crunched under our knees. As we grew older, there wasn't much point in meeting at the Blue Rock or leaving secret notes there. I hadn't been back there in years. My leg was already tired and sore from the long walk, and the space under the station house seemed a lot smaller than when I was 7. I'd be lucky if I fit at all. Did I mention that I don't like confined spaces? I squeezed in on my back and slid under through the weeds until I hit my head on the Blue Rock. It was a big rock, and I hit it hard enough that I yelled. Once I recovered, I craned my neck around and saw a piece of paper taped to the rock. I took it carefully, removed the tape, and taped my own note to the slick blue surface. The note I had written was short. And that is where I'm going to leave off with for today. We will find out what that note says on Wednesday. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's reading. Hopefully I will see you again on Wednesday. Have a good day.